Hunger, destitution, disaster, death. This is what Gaza looks like today. For 6 months, Israel has bombed this enclave, turning it into scorched earth. Yet, 6 months later, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not done. Despite international pressure, Netanyahu says Israel will go ahead with its planned ground offensive in southern Gaza's Rafah. Right now, Rafah is the one remaining safe haven in Gaza. Over 1 million Palestinians have crammed into the city bordering Egypt in order to escape Israeli bombardment. Just because it is the last standing city does not mean it's safe. Displaced civilians are sleeping rough, in tents, without food, without water, without medicine. US President Joe Biden, who has supported Israel during the war, has said an Israeli invasion of Rafah would be a red line without credible civilian protection plans in place. But despite the pressure, Netanyahu says Israel will be pushing ahead with the Rafah offensive.
No international pressure will stop us from achieving all the goals of the war, eliminating Hamas, freeing all of our hostages, and ensuring that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. In order to do that, we will operate in Rafah too.
Did you hear that? Netanyahu says no amount of international pressure will stop us. There seems to be no remorse for the suffering right now. Sure, Netanyahu says Israel will not leave civilians trapped in Rafah, but so far no plan to protect the civilians has been presented. How does he plan to save the civilians then exactly? They have repeatedly paid the price of the war between Hamas and Israel. They are the ones getting caught in the crossfire. And this is why all of Israel allies have appealed to Netanyahu, do not enter Rafah, protect the civilians. In fact, the head of the UN's World Health Organization has appealed to Israel, in the name of humanity, do not launch the assault. That's what he said. But Netanyahu is adamant. His office has approved the military's plan for an operation in Rafah, though no timeline has been given. If Israel goes ahead with the plan, where will the civilians go? Considering it is the last safe place for the civilians, what is Israel's grand evacuation plan for them? More importantly, what is Israel's plan for the next stage of the war? Where are things headed? Netanyahu has said it would be impossible to achieve the goal of destroying Hamas if Israel were to leave what he says are the group's last battalions in Rafah. According to Israeli estimates, 5,000 to 8,000 Hamas fighters are holed up there. But the real reason for Netanyahu's Rafah insistence is this. He is treading a fine line as he tries to appease his far-right coalition at home and cooperate with the US, a key ally. Already, as I mentioned earlier, the US has warned Israel not to proceed with the Rafah plan without a plan to shield the civilians. Washington has also described Israel's response to the October 7 attacks as over the top. And so Netanyahu faces mounting pressure over the high death toll in Gaza. But all that pressure and all that criticism is not deterring Israel's plans. It has shown no signs of winding down the offensive, which brings me back to the question, where else can Gazans go from here? We are now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.